I'm Jonny Smith.
I'm Richard Porter.
And this is Smith & Sniff, a podcast in which two friends talk about cars and many other things. Roll up, come on in ladies, come on in gents. What have we got? I'll tell you what we've got. We've got some new merchandise off of Smith & Sniff podcast. We got new tee designs, we got new hoodie designs, we got your lovely stickers, we got some hats, baseball and those other ones for winter. We got them all here. We got deceased back, we got cheers mate, thanks mate, goodbye. And we've also got a bit of Steam Rally Wrong'un. Come on in, enjoy the merch, buy some.
And 2.2, yeah, my favourite design.
Oh, of course, believe, yeah.
The 2.2, yeah, with a sweet prelude on it, an original design in different colourways. But that's my personal favourite, and the caps with 2.2 on the front, and then it just has a little yeah on the side in a different typeface.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with this. I haven't got one yet. If you go to smithandsniff.com to have a look at our new merch, don't be alarmed by how the caps look on there at the moment, because they're still being made, so there are some mock-ups.
That's horrendous.
The real things will look better
than
that, but it's all there, the new merch line.
It's there, and we're going to be two things. We're going to be adding to it as time goes on, because we have got other ideas written down on Post-its on our desks. And also, thanks to everybody who's already ordered merch. It's really lovely of you, and the feedback's been great.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who has ordered so far. And if you haven't, but you feel you might, or you won't, but you want to look at it anyway, smithandsniff.com, our redesigned website. It's pretty easy to spot where the merch is on the homepage.
Yeah. Oh, and the
that's it. We're going to stop shamelessly whoring.
The garments are of exquisite quality. The thread count seems ever so high end, and I do very much appreciate a high thread count, as you know. So please go to it, http:// all of the Smiths and the Sniffs. Thank you. Now, I wanted to talk to you, Rich, about something which I think we giggled about like a pair of middle-aged children. We talked about the combination, the timeline of bootcut jeans and Top Gear / the Grand Tour.
Yes.
So, because when Grand Tour with the three blokes ended recently, there was lots of archive photos being dug up of the three of them stood usually in a semicircle with crossed arms. And James May has either a rugby shirt or a chenille jumper on, and everyone had boot cuts. Hammond being the absolute Thor of, I mean, if Richard Hammond was in Avengers Reassemble, he would come in. He would be bootcut guy, wouldn't he? He'd be absolute.
Just bootcut. I think bootcut alone sounds like quite a good. Like, he's a member of the Deadpool universe.
Oh yeah. Don't call bootcut. He'll come in and blow everything up. Well.
Yeah. Well, no, his special skill is going into a slightly flooded men's lavatory in a pub or club and absorbing some of the piss and water on the floor just by walking through it with his frayed hems on his trousers that are almost as wide as the waistband, but they're not flares. Let's be very clear about that.
No,
flares is a different character.
No. Yeah, flares is a totally different character. Also, on an even bigger scale, because he's a superhero, he can do big scale operations. When a freighter ship drops quite a lot of oil into the ocean, what you do is you call Bootcut, aka Richard Hammond, and he goes out on a high-powered jet ski and just puts one leg out and goes in a massive circle around the slick and just draws it in.
Oh, we see. I was going to say, rather than the jet ski, obviously he doesn't have the power of flight, unaided.
No.
But if another superhero, e.g. Superman, who can fly, just dangles him into the sea, just enough that his feet are in the water and the hems of his signature jeans are there, and they're very absorbent. And then slowly the oil spill wicks up the back of his leg.
But then Superman won't be able to cope with the weight. The weight of the jeans.
I hadn't thought about that. Even Superman is overpowered by the weight of crude oil soaking into a pair of
crude oil soaked boot
very,
cuts.
very flared out, but not flares, Levi's or Lee Coopers.
Very much so. Yeah, the oil slick boot cut.
But then those old photos of Clarkson, Hammond and May, where they are all wearing very boot-cut jeans because it's the 2000s.
Yeah.
Did you see that the Sunday Times got one of those photos, mirrored it, and then they'd photoshopped on to the mirrored image the presenters' heads as they are now?
Yes. That's what made me giggle the most.
Jeremy and James's heads were photoshopped on, I thought, very well, to the point where I did a double take and went, they haven't done another photo shoot, have they, in their old clothes?
Which would be
But
awesome.
no, because Richard's head was photoshopped on, so it looked like he'd got some kind of horrendous, like, shoulder injury or something that was causing him to go, ah, and cant his head over to one side.
I thought the angle of the Photoshop, because you know when a cheap Photoshop looks a little bit like a Nintendo 64 game of GoldenEye, where when the characters turn their head, the perspective doesn't quite work. It looks like a printout of someone's face on a flat surface.
Yes.
Love a bit of an N64 GoldenEye, by the way. Oh, classic.
But I was looking at this picture when I first saw it, and I was like, I genuinely, for a minute, I was like, have they? No, this can't. They didn't do another photo shoot for this. This is Photoshop. But they'd sort of tweaked some of the details, but then I was suddenly howling with laughter at the fact they hadn't bothered. And to me, it looked like a fairly easy fix to just sort of bring in the hems of the jeans a bit to make it look more modern.
No.
Because then you could have believed it really was a new photo.
Well,
unless they dug out some boot cuts.
Do you know what? It's funny you should say that, because the reason why the whole boot cut thing appeared in my head is because my daughter, who lives her life one vintage transaction at a time, is loving fashion because she's a teenage girl. But she said she got some boot cuts recently, and she went, "Oh yeah, like the boot cuts are in again." And I went, "Oh, are
Yes.
they?" And then she said, "Dad, have you had boot cuts?" And I went, "Yes, yes."
Let me show you some pictures, my girl.
Yes.
Let me take you back to the entire period from about 2000 to 2008.
Yeah, it would be.
Would that be fair?
Yeah, when I first started on the TV, there was quite a lot of cutty boot going on, I would say. And
there's an incredible example of when the boot cut goes wrong in
Simon Cowell.
I'm fairly certain it's a very early Top Gear item from the new generation of the show, when Jeremy waxes lyrical about the Aston Martin DB7.
Okay.
That must have just been on the way out, that car.
Yeah.
I think it's probably even from the first series, 2002.
But maybe that's why he was waxing lyrical. Maybe it had been killed off.
And there's a bit where he gets out of an Aston in front of a cottage in a little village and walks away from it.
Yeah.
And it's one of his jeans, at least on one side. From memory, they're quite frayed and they're all sort of hooked up on the back of his shoes in a really khaki way. Because I remember watching it with my girlfriend at the time, she just went, could they not have done another take where he sorted his trousers out?
Just haven't. Nobody's done
No, but that's the perils of the low-slung hem on a bootcut jean. Which
we have talked about before, Simon Cowell being the king of the BC, I would say.
Yes,
absolutely. And do you know what? It can play havoc with a pedal box if you're not careful. That is the danger of rekindling the bootcut. It can play real havoc with the pedals. But maybe that's Maybe that's what the Grand Tour needs to come back as. It's just the Grand Bootcut Tour. And it's a compendium of all boot-cutted helmsmanship and old clips from those three guys.
Of course,
who knows?
What really set the bootcut apart back in those days was that you could pair it, and people frequently did, with a more formal shoe.
Oh gosh, I knew you would get. This is the jeans
in the popular jeans and shoe combination.
Why do we find this
I don't
funny?
think is it still going? Jeans and shoes, a Twitter account, wasn't it? And they'd spelt it jeans, and then shoes was spelt SHEUX.
It was one of the reasons to stay on Twitter. If that's gone, I'm just finding it now. Yeah, jeans and shoes still exists.
Jeans and shoe.
Although they haven't. Oh yeah, they have posted some stuff. There's not a lot of shoes. Someone's he'd written, does anybody else miss those conference calls speakers in the middle of big desks which look like a triangular kind of frisbee thing with a keypad on it? That's probably retro.
I was in a room recently that had one of those.
Were you?
And I can't remember where. Yeah,
jeans and shoes.
Jeans and shoes.
It just
is too good. But I mean, did you do this? I certainly did. A nice smart leather shoe, but with a bootcut jean.
Do you know, I
was very acceptable going out wear for a while
in the early millennium period. I'm going to put my hand up strongly and say I never stooped to those levels.
Did you
No,
not?
I went to many other bad levels, but I didn't stoop to that level.
No, I start to look back and go, oh no, was I quite basic back then? I didn't even realise it. But, smart shirt, bootcut jeans, shoes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Off you go.
Pissy nightclub gents, check.
Pissy nightclub hem.
Yeah.
Last week, before we started whoring our merchandise, you were about to say something about having seen an Audi RS4 with a ladder on the roof.
Yeah.
Now hold that thought, because a listener called Charlie Denham picked up on this.
Oh.
And he said in the most recent podcast, Johnny mentioned he saw an Audi RS4 with a ladder on the roof, but it wasn't mentioned again as the conversation moved to the McLaren W1's pre-soiled interior.
Oh, yeah.
However, I was still left lusting after a story of a high-performance estate seemingly being used as some sort of trader's car. It got me thinking about a car I've seen a lot in my hometown, Southend-on-Sea, which is being used quite clearly by a tradesman. The car in question is a W124 Mercedes Coupe.
A coupe?
A coupe.
How strange.
Each time I've seen the car, says Charlie, it has a ladder mounted to the roof, and I've often seen the boot fastened with bungee cords to keep it down, with paint tins and other decorating paraphernalia on view, as the boot is so full it can't be closed properly.
Oh my gosh, they're ruining it.
Well, it gets worse. You're not going to enjoy this.
No.
Charlie says, the condition is probably on par with a Transit of the same age used for the same purpose. There isn't a panel on the car that isn't dented, scratched or rusted. Annoyingly, I don't have a photo, as most of the time I've seen the car, I've also been driving. But I did manage to get a passenger to look up the reg once, and at the time it had covered close to 300,000 miles.
Oh my gosh, that's a hero car.
It seems preposterous to me that the guy is determined to still use what is quite clearly a poor choice for his profession.
Yeah.
If it's a case of not having the money for a van, then surely there's enough value in the Merc to sell it and buy a cheap estate. It baffles me, but I also salute the man for using the car for what is quite clearly not its intended purpose. Have you guys got any similar stories of inappropriate tradesman cars? Would be interested to hear your opinions on this, as it's going along the same sort of subject as strange food delivery cars. On that note, the last time I had an Indian takeaway delivered, the driver pulled up in a C63S.
Okay, well, I mean, all I'm going to say is my RS4 ladder story is possibly anticlimactic. So the RS4 in question, it was under 5 years old. I forget, maybe 3 years old. It wasn't old at all. And it was immaculate. Dark colour, like, the sort of Soviet grey. And it had a roof rack, obviously, and it had a really splattered looking, ruined, tired ladder on it, metal. Those ones where you only look at it and it will either get you dirty or it will dent something.
Yes.
And it was lashed to the roof with bungees, and they pulled out of a junction. I was walking at the time. They pulled out of a junction in a village and then just blattered it up the road straight into the national speed limit zone and properly uncorked it. And I was just thinking to myself, that's just been bungeed on. I know it's a light ladder, being aluminium and all, but hell, that thing could just strain itself off and engouge the roof. And because the car was black, I thought, are they just doing that for like a 2-mile journey? Have they just gone round to their like nan's house to clean the windows quickly on? It was a Sunday. Or is this somebody actually going to start using this car hard? But there was no sign, sadly, of a Rhino pipe. And a Rhino pipe sounds like a euphemism, but it's something which I've noticed is on a lot of builders and tradespeople's vans. Have you seen a Rhino pipe?
I don't think I have.
Well, you need to look up your Rhino pipes. It's a company who are obviously making a killing from just a very simple extruded hollow thing. Or is it a Rhino tube? I'm sure it's a Rhino pipe.
Well, so Rhino Products website here, the Pipe Tube Pro. Oh, one of those. Okay, yes.
It's a Rhino pipe.
Yeah, well, it's apparently Rhino is the company, and Pipe Tube Pro is the.
We've all been there.
Absolute, you pipe tube.
You
Pro.
absolute Rhino pipe. Well,
yeah. So Rhino make a hole. They make racking. They make roof racks. They make steps and ladders for the back of a van. If you
or for the roof of an Audi RS4. Yeah, when it's been drop kicked down a staircase and then.
But here we go. Hello, Pro, says the website. Introducing the Pipe Tube Pro. The first complete redesign of Rhino's hugely popular 3-metre pipe tube since its launch in 2005. Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Back to 2005.
2005, right? It's a simple tube, and that's what I don't understand. It's a simple tube, and it's 300 quid.
Is it? I haven't got to that bit yet.
What's that about? It's just an extrusion of aluminium with plastic caps at either end.
Well, I think you're underselling the efforts of the Rhino Corporation of wherever they're from, because
a lot of money.
It says that it has an optional full-length PVC lining, an upgraded integral locking system, and an added rubber seal to reduce water entering the tube.
Oh, so not eliminate,
Reduce.
not eliminate.
Not eliminate. No, reduce is doing a little bit of sleight of hand there, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so. I mean. It's like if some water gets in that already feels like it's too much water, if you were, say, transporting a painting or something that's all rolled up. But I'm guessing that's not what it's designed for. It's for pipes and stuff, isn't it?
And tubing. Yeah. So copper pipes.
It also claims here that it's been professionally crash tested, but I don't really know in what way.
Well, by the guy in Southend-on-Sea with the Mercedes coupe. That's where he made a few quick quids by intentionally crashing his Mercedes at slow speed into things. And that just ticked the box for Rhino. They went, fine. That looks fine. Nobody died, did they? He just reversed into, I don't know, a shop at 15 miles an hour with a Rhino pipe on his roof. That seems fine.
Oh, actually, it gets more significant because I've just scrolled down and it says not only crash tested, it says independently crash tested at Millbrook Proving Ground.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
Also, it has an aerodynamic nose cone design.
Yeah, but also it's not a big deal really. I mean, if you look at the design, don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against Rhino. They're making a killing from a very simple extrusion, but clearly they're not paying us to say this. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like a little more effort could be done. But what do I know? I tell you what, I didn't know. And I was going to mention this in the last cast, but we got carried away talking about some utter toss of another type. I didn't realise that in the 80s, Subaru invented the third eye lamp in their Subaru Brat. I think it was the Brat.
Well, John, if you'd read some of my boring car trivia books, you'd know about this because it's in one of them, and I can't remember which.
Well, I was going to say which. I've obviously not read the one where it's in.
I can't remember.
Well, you can't remember.
It might be the most recent one.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to look now. But yes,
it's amazing.
Yes, it's amazing, isn't it? For people who don't know, if you imagine a sort of old 80s Subaru, so a Brat, but then it was available on the saloons in the States.
1600 or whatever they called it, or the GL.
The Subaru badge is in the middle of sort of quite a slender grille, and on cars equipped with this optional feature, the badge was on a panel which then, like a garage door, sort of lifted up out of the way, and there was a light behind it.
It's so cool. I've got to say, it's one of those things where if I could find the grille and the mechanism, I would just have it on my office wall for no apparent reason, because I just think it's glorious. Why can't we do a bit more of that?
More of central headlights?
Yeah, a bit more of central headlight. I mean, I know the Rover Cyclops had it back in the old days, which would have been, the Rover P4 or the predecessor was it the P3? That had a Cyclops third headlight.
I found it. It's from one of my books. I think it might be the third one. Between 1980 and 1982, Subaru offered the American market version of its GL four-wheel drive wagon and hatchback and the Brat pickup with a third central headlight concealed behind the grille badge. Billed by Subaru as the passing light or centre light, the extra lamp was operated by a separate dashboard switch, which would make the badge flip out of the way and the light turn on.
So cool.
Though it's never clear for what reason.
What? No. Was it extra bright? Was it like full beam bright? So could you use it as an extra full beam?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so, because it wasn't that big.
No, it didn't look very big.
It's just sort of, because it's actually smaller than the headlights. Because it was sort of, it was just like this tiny central lamp, more like a sort of, when fog lights used to be just like separate units hanging below the bumper.
Yeah.
But I just
if anyone's
don't know
got one, I'd be keen to know. I bet you they are unobtainium, and in Scooby world, I bet they're worth a fortune if you've got those.
Oh God, yeah! I bet they're highly sought after. It says here that I've just found a website that's talking about it. It says that if you had the headlights on, then you put the passing lamp on. If you then activated the high beams, the passing lamp switched off. So it definitely wasn't for extra light on the road ahead.
Interesting.
Really weird.
Yeah.
I mean, we are talking about a company that used to fit a little switch that was there purely to make the clock brighter or dimmer. So, they're not necessarily home to the most rigorous logic for stuff like this.
I'm down with that, though. What I'm not down with is Mark Zuckerberg's new car.
Oh.
I'd like to talk about that because I don't really understand what he's worth. Several $100 billion, I'm going to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I
guess so.
He had a car, listeners. He had a car made recently that you might have heard of. And in his words, he built a Porsche minivan from a Cayenne. So he took a Cayenne and stretched it, and it doesn't have an additional door. It's still a 5-door, but it's just longer, a lot longer. And he's called it a minivan. What he doesn't seem to know, for a man that's extremely intelligent, he doesn't seem to know what a limousine is. Because
yes,
it's just a limousine.
He's made his family a stretch limo, hasn't he? And
he's made his family a Cayenne limo.
Make any sense?
And I think it's a Cayenne, the fastback one, the one that you drove recently, the GT, is it?
It's just called the Cayenne Coupe.
Cayenne Coupe, which obviously means it's less useful. So he's picked that one, I think, for his thing, and it's got sliding side doors. Now I'm down with the sliding side doors. That's cool, but I don't get it.
I mean, like you say, he's got billions of dollars. He could easily afford to do this, but it does feel like it was probably a very expensive way to make a stretch limo when really he just wanted a more roomy family car, didn't he? So
yeah, but it's not going to be. It's not going to have a bigger boot because you've picked the wrong base car. It just hasn't thought it through.
Surely he should have. He just wanted roomy. He should have just got an Alphard or something like that.
He should have just got a Japanese import, shouldn't he?
Hang on, actually, there's that Lexus version of the Alphard now, isn't there? What's that called? I think it's going on sale here soon. If it's not,
no,
already.
It is. It's called the. Is it called the
What's
XM?
it called?
The Lexus XM, I think.
LM. It's called the LM.
LM, because I wanted them to do an LMP version, which I think would be amazing.
What with a really big fuel tank?
Don't you think? It could.
And actually, talking as we were of headlights, a little button that makes the headlights go. If you want to overtake somebody,
I think that's it.
That
car's so cool. The Lexus LM. I can't wait. I should have driven one months ago, but I can't wait to have a go on one of them.
But you couldn't say that the LM isn't luxurious, because it is. It's got proper sort of airline reclining seats in the back. Maybe that's it. Maybe not enough seats for all of his family. But you can just. The point is it's got a really squared off back, like a Volkswagen Caravelle type thing. And it's built for chauffeuring. And also you could probably make it discreet, whereby what he's done, and I'm sure he gets pissed off with being noticed because he's one of the richest blokes in the world, etc., etc. He's just gone and picked an SUV in that crayon grey with a boot that's not going to be very good as a family car, and stretched it, and it's all made of steel, so it's not moving any game on at all, and I think it just looks a bit dull. What I'd like to say to Mark is he's obviously a very creative, intelligent guy. We could have come up with, in the space of 5 minutes, 10 better things to have stretched or driven around in stealth. You want stealth wealth, which is why these London taxis get converted. You can buy an actual executive version, can't you? Private version, which have got these. What's the name? Is it LEVC? The London taxi company. They do a really high end, beautifully fitted out version. I've seen this.
It's gorgeous.
And
then there's a couple of companies. One of them being Charisma, who used to do all of the magazine cover Max Power cars, Jamie Shaw. He does a roaring trade nowadays with Mercedes Sprinters, stealth wealth, luxury people carriers for people like footballers who want to get from A to B and do business or sleeping, but they don't want to swan around in a Rolls Royce or something that looks blatantly wealthy. Instead, it's just a sort of blacked out van that could possibly be a private ambulance, but it's not carrying dead people. So,
no, the vans are, because that's the thing. I think generally amongst the super rich and the celebrities, the stretch limo is extremely passé, isn't it? It has been for a few years. They all get driven around in Sprinters now.
Yeah, which is ironic, isn't it? Because that's just a van.
Well, it's a posh van. I wrote a feature on this for the Road Rat magazine. One of the reasons is that vans have got so much more civilised now.
Yeah.
And you can get air suspension and stuff on them, so they're much more comfortable. They don't clatter about. And some of these modifying companies actually make their own seats so that you get better seats than the ones that are coming out of the factory with. But Merc will now do you quite a fancy one. And I interviewed a guy that I have worked with who does security for big stars. And he said one of the great things about a van is that they're just so much more practical, because if you've got a big star in town, say, it's like, I don't know. Taylor Swift comes to London and she's doing some promo. While she's in doing the radio interviews and photo shoots and stuff like that, the van can be used to zoom about town, picking up some more outfits and getting food and all this other stuff. And it's just so much more practical to be able to get stuff into it. Plus, stars often come with an entourage, and a van is better at swallowing publicist and manager and friend and all of this other stuff. These other things that an famous person wants to travel around with.
So those famous people who are choosing that mode of transport, they're progressing, and they're seeing that the limo is understandably has been and stupid and also inconspicuous. Whereas,
well, that's the other thing that this guy that I talked to said, is that the van, if it's just black with black tin windows, can be quite inconspicuous. A stretch limo in the old days just went double take, someone interesting could be in here, or it's just a hen do.
Yeah.
But either way, the van goes under the radar.
I wonder, because Mark Zuckerberg is far more intelligent than I ever will be. I think he's doing a double bluff. I think he's paying someone to drive around in this Cayenne coupe stretch thing that's just employed by him, and probably goes and fetches his dry cleaning, or goes to the garden centre and gets him some perineums or whatever those flowers are called. But actually, his wife is genuinely driving something stealth, like the decoy motorcade of the presidents that's sometimes been employed.
Yeah.
That's what I reckon this is.
This guy I know, Tom, in fact, that's one of the things that they do sometimes. Taylor Swift, in fact, is one of the people he's looked after, and he did say, I don't think I'm betraying any confidences here, I say that apparently sometimes they will do they'll do dummy convoy. They'll send a couple of vans in the wrong direction because she gets so much attention and gets followed by so many aggressive paps that they do a little bit of running interference, or whatever you'd call it, just to throw them off the scent. Well, she's probably like shut in the boot of an old X-Type or something and being driven there and she's staying in a Premier Inn again, because they're all hanging around outside the Landmark Hotel or wherever. And so she's like, no, screw it, I'm going in the Prem. No one will ever suspect.
Well, they wouldn't though, would they? That is the ultimate. That's what you want to be doing if you genuinely want to escape.
Can I do this is not my celeb name drop story, but it was told to me by someone who worked with Cliff Richard, of all people, on a concert. And apparently Cliff Richard was at some function in central London, and there's Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And Cliff's chatting to Paul and says something about, the traffic getting here was a nightmare. And Paul McCartney goes, it doesn't, not a problem for me because I got the tube. And Cliff Richard's like, you got the tube? But you were in the Beatles. What are you playing at? And he's like, no, I get the tube all the time. I just put a hat on. And then, if someone comes over and they'll go, are you Paul McCartney? I just go, oh, no, I get that all the time. I mean, honestly, what would Paul McCartney be doing on the tube? And people go, yeah, you're right. And they leave him alone.
That's so cool.
Very cool.
So cool.
Cliff is kind of jazzed by this idea that he can get into central London more quickly by just using the tube. So he's like, I'm going to give it a go. So the next time he needs to do something in town, hat on, onto the tube, someone comes up to him and goes, excuse me, are you Cliff Richard? And he goes, no, I get that a lot. But honestly, what would I be doing on the tube?
Do you know what? Who needs the tube when you've got a Rhino pipe? That's what Cliff would say.
Well, he is quite thin, isn't he?
Do
you think he could just be fed inside? Iggy Pop.
Oh, Iggy.
Now, there's a man who could fit into a Rhino pipe and just be transported where he wants to go.
Iggy Pop doesn't even need a limo. He just uses whoever's car is nearby with a substantial roof rack, and his people, his trusted friend, make sure that the Rhino pipe is torqued down onto the roof properly so it doesn't kind of start lifting.
Well, that's okay, because Iggy Pop's been crash tested at Millbrook Proving.
He has.
So he's okay. But I've heard that Iggy Pop doesn't even need a plane. Someone just posts him to where he's going.
He gets fired out of a cannon.
But he's too light. He's just going to get blown off course by even a moderate wind.
Does he fill his pockets with billiard balls and then get fired out of a cannon?
Oh, yes, that's how he does it. Yeah. But he is, fundamentally quite aerodynamic on account of being so slender.
Amazingly slender.
Like a torpedo.
Yeah. He is.
Well, anyway, I
amazing.
wanted to just do a couple of little back refs to last week. We were talking about, in fact, it was in the Ottersot about Lexus IS200 instruments.
Gauge clusters, yes. Good subject matter as well. Very good.
Well, we were sort of being a bit nostalgic about the original IS200 and saying what a sort of nice car it was, and I bet they're still nice. We've had a couple of listeners from Ireland who've pulled us up on how that car's perceived over there. Dara Carson is one of them. He says, Irish listener here, I find it interesting how differently these cars and owners are perceived across the water in Ireland. Without giving too much away, they're loathed by every other part of the car scene in Ireland. You'll soon realise why they're definitely not witness protection spec over here, and why all UK IS200s will soon have disappeared from your roads and ended up on ours.
Drifting.
Yeah, it's so another Irish listener, Adrian McGrillen, says, I'm from the other side of the Irish Sea. Strong possibility the IS200 has a very different image with yourselves compared to what it has over here. If you think of a Mustang at Cars and Coffee as the university for Bellendery, then the IS200 is the preschool.
Oh, no. Is it?
It sounds like it's a bit knobby. Adrian also says, slightly off topic, but I used to work with a girl called Cleo Williams.
No way. No way.
He says, I'll never forget the first time I met her. Her outfit suited her name perfectly, but it was 100% unintentional. She was wearing a grey regatta half-zip fleece, dark blue jeans, and the piece de resistance, a pair of black Dr. Martin boots with gold laces.
Oh, my gosh. This is ridiculous. No. No way.
Yeah. So there we go. Nice touch. Thank you, Adrian, for that.
So it seems, despite the fact that Lexus is a sort of sensible brand, or has been thought of as being a sensible, middle-aged, possibly middle-class brand, it's a hooligan thing. The used IS200s go to Ireland and never come back. They run away with the circus and do dodgy stuff.
It sounds like that, yeah. And I did have, and now can't find, of course, a message from someone in New Zealand who said the same thing. They said the IS200 is a bit of a twat magnet where they are.
But they're such good cars.
Well, yeah, it's sort of not about that though, isn't it? I suppose they're relatively cheap, rear-wheel drive,
strong,
tunable,
yeah.
I suppose.
Tunable and strong.
And that's the thing, they're tough, aren't they? They'll put up with a lot of aggro.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. Something else, just a back ref, about things behind the sun visor.
Right, yeah.
Simon Nichols said he found a 1,000 Vietnamese dong note, that's about £3, in his mother's Renault Megane.
What?
She's never been to Vietnam. She claims to not know how it got there, despite owning the car from new, and it's still there today, 5 years after I discovered it.
What? She's had the car since new and never been to Vietnam?
Yeah. Yeah, and yet there's a 100,000 dong note behind the sun visor.
That's really weird.
Simon says around 2000, he also found a very rude clipping from what he assumes was a Continental adult pamphlet, which fell out of the visor in a work van that was normally driven by a 60-something-year-old man.
My brother has been responsible for snipping up certain magazines and putting them into people's sun visors at work back in the day, should we add, back in the day, which I think is still entertaining because it can drop a bit of a skin-coloured printout landing on your lap while you're driving along, can be. But have you seen this letter from Joshua Stevenson?
I was just about to say yes.
So this is an interesting one. Guys, probably not surprising, as I grew up in Australia, we would regularly find huntsman spiders under the sun visors, which gave you quite the scare when you're driving into town. CMTMB.
Hey.
Now, I don't know much about the huntsman, but with a name like Huntsman...
They're bloody massive.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, now, memory serves, they are big and beige and hairy, but not poisonous, but they are really big.
Okay.
And I have seen a couple while I've been in Australia. I wouldn't want one to fall into my lap while I was driving. One final one on these. Doug Ellison. Hello, Doug. He says, someone in Leicester got lucky in about 2006. I spent all 3 days of that year's Festival of Speed at glorious Goodwood. And while not much of an autograph hunter, I had the good fortune to get my Friday ticket signed by Derek Bell, my Saturday ticket signed by the late, great John Surtees, and my Sunday ticket signed by motorbike legend Giacomo Agostini.
Oh my gosh.
I was looking forward to getting home and getting them all framed, until I tucked them away in the sun visor of my rental car, where they remained after I'd returned it to Enterprise.
Oh, you dick splash.
So, so if you picked up a shitty rental box in the summer of '06 from Enterprise in Leicester, I hope you enjoyed more than a dozen World Championships worth of autographed goodwoodness.
They would have
Not that I'm
gone
bitter or
They would have
anything.
gone straight in the bin as well, wouldn't they?
Oh,
The Henry
they?
vacuum would have just sucked all those bad boys up, and they would have been never seen again. That's really, really sad.
don't-
Also, you just said Friday ticket signed by Derek Bell.
Sorry.
I think you need to say that again.
Yes, I feel like that's. I'm going to put this onto Doug because he's forgotten the very basic rules of referring to Derek Bell as 5-time Le Mans winning Derek Bell.
Yeah, that's how we have to constantly refer to him. Okay. Have we read this out? Weird things found in a car. This is an interesting message from James Drake. Now, James Drake says, "Hi, sweet guys, regular listener and Patreon here. Thanks, James. You're a lovely SSG. On this week's cast, Jonny mentioned that people should share weird things found behind sun visors, and a long-forgotten suppressed memory bubbled up to the surface of my little brain, immediately transporting me to a very strange car-buying experience I had off of the late 2000s. You'll note that in that time-honoured tradition of the podcast that I've gone off on a total tangent, and this is nothing to do with sun visors on that side of things. Anyway, around 07-08, I was deeply into French hot hatches and had a Clio 182 trophy. Oof. Love those. Still my favourite one.
Yes.
And a Clio 172 Cup at the same time. You greedy ratbag, James. You helmsman. I bet you were cocking a leg everywhere, but not in a sort of like stray dog way. As I said, I was in deep. Anyway, courtesy of some man maths, I convinced myself and my then girlfriend, who is now my wife, that we really needed a third Clio, this time a more luxurious 172 full fat or FF, to unleash some Renault Sport Clio fan parlance. What? So a third Clio?
Hang on, no, but is that what they call them? The full spec one is called
FF.
The FF.
Well, Ferrari will sue Renault for that. They'll backdate it. Well, no, and then Jensen will go, "Oi, we're a dead company, but we're going to sue Ferrari." My logic was that the trophy was a bit nice for everyday commuting, as it was sure to be a future classic. The Cup, on the other hand, was a touch on the compromise side, having been optimised for track work. We don't use that word optimised enough because it's always used in car literature and press stuff, isn't it? But totally ruined for anything else. Jonny would have liked it, though, as being a 172 Cup, it did not have the aircon and all that. After a sustained search, an interesting car popped up, and being quick off the mark, I secured the first viewing and therefore the first refusal on what appeared to be a peach of a Phase 2 silver 172 FF. The car ticked all of the boxes and was being offered at a fair price from a small but established specialist in Essex. Okay, that's nice detail. On the day of the viewing, I jumped onto the train and everything went smoothly, the dealer picking me up promptly from the nearest train station in a spectacularly over-wheeled Range Rover Sport. Very Essex. Some might have called it murdered out. Others might have simply called it lacking in class and taste. Anyway, at the time it was a fairly new car and it would have cost someone a lot of money. Without wishing to be judgmental, the window tints aloned me to the fact that the someone might have made their money from unscrupulous practices on that side of things. We arrived a short time later at what was actually a nice car dealership on a converted farm. Whilst not to my taste, the cars in stock were impressive. There were countless high-end SUVs, an abundance of massive wheels, questionable body kits, and limousine tints aplenty. After a quick look around, I quickly established that the Clio wasn't the sort of thing the dealer would usually sell, and that his lack of knowledge about Phase 2 172s was trumped only by his lack of interest in them. When questioned on how he'd come to have it in stock, he admitted it had been a part exchange against one of his more usual cars, and he just wanted it off his forecourt, hence the surprisingly reasonable price, given age, mileage, and outwardly condition. Priced to sell was the classic description in the advert, which, as a side note, always irritates the hell out of me. As what's the point in advertising a car at a price that means it won't sell? Price,
it's true.
It's so true. Price to possibly
Price
not
to
sell.
not sell.
I have priced this because I'm not
it's a
bothered.
2004 Toyota Yaris Verso, and the price is £9 million.
Yes.
It's priced not to sell.
I don't want to. Being the diligent and reasonably experienced car buyer that I am, I set about inspecting the car to make sure everything was above board. It was actually quite clean and tidy, but it didn't take long for me to start finding issues. Aside from smelling a damp and a bit whiffy, it was immediately clear it had recently had the driver's side window smashed. Not the end of the world in itself, but given the surprise on the dealer's face, he didn't know it had recently had the window replaced, which was surprising given the amount of glass I quickly found in the driver's door and under the seat. Clearly, he hadn't looked very hard when it was part exchanged. I found myself wondering what else he might have missed, as there was really a lot of glass in the car. Things then got really strange. When I opened the boot, lifted the carpet to have a nose around inside the spare wheel, there was what can only be described, or spare wheel well, there was only what can be described as a large, tightly wound bundle of dark cloth sitting where you would have expected a spare wheel and some tools. Being the innocent young chap that I was, without thinking, I just picked it up. Due to the way that it was wrapped up, I quickly unravelled it, and as I lifted it up, dumping the contents into the spare wheel well with a loud clatter, sitting in the boot of the car, there was a very large, very scary-looking machete. An actual taser, like you see off the movies, a roll of tape, and some disposable gloves. For a few moments, the car dealer and I just stood there not talking, shocked into silence by the brutal stash of intimidating hardware sitting where there should have been nothing scarier than a cheap scissor jack, although they are quite scary, James. Before long, he broke the awkward silence by immediately offering me the car at a huge discount if I was willing to take it away with me that day, on the understanding that we both agreed to not mention it to anybody. Suffice to say, I thought of driving... Yeah, the thought of driving around in a crime scene didn't really appeal, let alone being mistaken for a nefarious up-and-coming gangster who, presumably unbeknown to the crim world, had recently chopped in his trusty Clio for a jazzed-up SUV. Trying not to go all squeaky-voiced, I politely but firmly asked to be dropped back at the local train station where I waited for the next train. On sharing the glory with my girlfriend and flatmate when I got home, they pointed out that given I'd touched the cloth, I should have probably... That's not a euphemism, he had actually touched the cloth. I should probably notify the police, as my fingerprints were now all over the car too. I went to my local police station that afternoon, gave the statement, and I never heard anything else about it. The advert for the car had been taken down by the time I got home, and I imagine the car was probably disposed of afterwards. I never did buy a 172FF full fat. Instead, I opted for the Renault Sport Megane 230 F1 Team R26. I looked at several before buying, and I never found any weaponry in any of them. CMTMB, James. Well, James, thank you for that detailed letter.
A machete and a taser?
Yeah, and gloves and kidnap tape. I mean, that's quite scary, isn't it? If it makes you feel any better, James, you got a Renault Megane R26, which is a very, very cool car, and one day I would like to own without a machete.
Yeah, those are sporty Renault goals right there, apart from the Clio with the machete in it, which I think we'd all pass on. I don't know. I mean, it depends how clearly the price wasn't quite tempting enough, even though it was priced to sell. Now, talking as we were of French cars, mate, before we go, I realised it was the Paris Motor Show. It's back.
It is back.
And it's where they've announced the new Renault 4.
Yes, I'm glad you brought this up, because I was invited to go, but for boring diary shizzle, I couldn't make it. Can I just say that I think Renault are on form and on fire at the moment, given that, you know, Stellantis has got all the brands going on, and given that there's so many other big companies out there vying for attention. Renault seemingly have just gone, yeah, we're just going to do it our way, and we're just going to make small, cool cars. And they are, by all accounts. I'm so pleased that it's doing everything that so many companies aren't at the moment. What say you, Richard?
No, I like the look of that 4. I think it's interesting. I do worry that Renault's going to run out of back catalogue. They're really plundering it, aren't they? Because obviously there's the 5, and now we've got the 4, which confusingly is bigger.
Yes.
And more expensive than the 5.
Yes.
Because it's sort of closer to a small SUV. The 5 is meant to be just a little hatch.
Yeah.
And then there's the Twingo concept as well, which supposedly is going to become a smaller sort of EV city car.
That's right.
And so they're really sort of mining their greatest hits. I suppose you'd argue that Mini's been doing that for 20 odd years, and they just, each new model evolves the look while still nodding backwards to what was, the cars that inspired it. But and I know why they're doing it. It's because it's like that's one thing that the Chinese incoming car companies can't do is plunder
heritage
50, 60-year-old heritage.
Yeah.
But no, I like that 4. I think it looks quite nice. And I was reading about because they've done this quite quickly, haven't they? This has been a sort of all hands on deck. Let's get the bastard things out there kind of.
I think those are the exact words they will have used.
Yeah.
In French, obviously,
yes. But yes, the same car or the same, it's the same platform underneath both. I thought it was brand new, but actually it's a sort of a bit of a bits, as I understand it. And that multi-link back axle, which is sort of uncommonly sophisticated, considering the 5 and the 4 are currently just front-wheel drive, is taken from, I think, the Dacia Duster. Is one of the carryover parts. So it's actually quite a clever sort of rummage through the cupboard to see what fits the best. And it was also claimed that, because I think we've said this at some point, it's got that multi-link rear end because it's then ready to accept a second motor to make a four-wheel drive one.
Yeah.
But they were claiming that it also, or maybe only, needs that rear axle because it's easier to package the battery around it.
Oh.
Which I thought was moderately interesting.
Well, if they did a four-wheel drive one, and Renault 4s are famously good at off-roading, aren't they? They were Renault's answer to the 2CV, albeit a bigger car, probably a more comfortable car. But imagine if they did a Trekker version, like an electric overlandy Renault 4, and it is very sit up and beg if people haven't seen the design of it. I think I prefer the 5, but and I'm actually driving the 5 in the next 48 hours. But I'm slightly late to the party, but intentional. I've got a bit of an idea at my sleeve for not my night valve sleeve. Would it be night sleeve valve? For
one of the things I like about the 4 is it's got you can have it with a full length canvas roof that looks really neat because it just looks like a roof when it's closed. But it goes all the way back, and that just looks quite jolly and fun. So I hope the whole car is sort of jolly and fun.
Well, I hope so, because cars have got very serious. There's not enough fun cars. Do you remember the Polo Open Air? You will do, because you're a pervert.
Yes.
But
yes.
But yeah, the Polo Open Air was like an electric Webasto, wasn't it, in a more modern car?
Or the Mini Open as well. That had a full-length sunroof. And weirdly, I think the Mini Open was very popular in France.
Was it?
Well, old Minis were generally sort of surprisingly popular. If you ever went to Paris in the 80s or 90s, they seemed to be everywhere. I mean, not quite as much as dented 205s, but they were definitely around and about. Usually with sort of those kind of extra bumpers that were because have vertical end sections.
The little tail rails.
To protect the lights.
Yeah, I like those. My auntie had those.
I look forward to hearing how that Renault 5 is, because I think that looks ace.
I think it's the most exciting launch of a new car this year. Now, don't get me wrong, we've had Exotica, we've had Ferraris, and we've had all manner of other things. But when you really distill it down, like a car that's genuinely going to be useful and used and perhaps kind of fit for purpose and real world, what other cars have had more of a buzz around them than the Renault 5? I can't think of anything this year.
No. I know what you mean. I think particularly buzz that sort of cuts through to the real world escapes the car world, because I know someone who's really not into cars at all, and they've ordered one.
Really?
They just saw it and went, wow, that's great, I want one. And they did that early order thing. We had to pay some quid to get a pass.
Yeah.
To be able to give them the chance to order one, which was quite an interesting way of doing things. So, yeah, I think it's really.
I know
come
two
true.
people have
I hope
ordered
it's
them
decent.
who aren't interested in electric cars, but they can't help themselves.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
it could be, we're being a bit serious and car-y here, but it could be one of those cars that breaks the prejudice of EVs for some people, because they go, well, it'll more than likely be a second car for a lot of people. And again, it's fun, it's vibrant, love the interior. I've got to go yellow because I want the yellow fleck inside. But no, I'm down with it, mate. I'm down with it. You know,
Good.
I know it's fun. I know it's foreign and that,
Maybe
but
we'll
I love
catch
it.
up on it next week.
You know what I mean?
We should wrap this up. I did just want to say the only other thing that struck me from the Paris show, or reminded me of something, is that the updated Citroen logo is TOS.
Haven't seen it.
It's on some of the cars now, and it's already on the C3. And then this stuff they revealed at
Is it worse?
the Paris show, C4 facelift, and the facelift, that fucking AMI thing. It's the oval. It's the oval logo. It's a retro look. It's how the Citroen logo used to be. You know.
Oh, is it like the
30s.
Fiat logo, which is in that kind of almost a lozenge, but it's slightly tapered lozenge?
It is more like an oval with sort of a vertical oval with two thick chevrons in it. I don't know. I just think it's really weak. It was better when the logo was sort of just the chevrons, but they were slightly pointy. It just felt more dynamic and interesting. This just looks cheap and shit to me.
Well,
but what do I know?
Well, the new Peugeot, well, it's not that new, is it? It's about 3 years old now. That logo, I miss the old Lion.
Yeah, that's not great.
The old
is it?
Lion.
I know. Again, you just go.
The old Lion was a bit stronger.
It's just an energy drink logo, isn't it?
There is a sort of whiff of Rich Energy or a no-name energy drink about it. I wonder how many cans of Rich Energy have been sold recently.
Probably fewer than they've
What do
sold
you think?
Peugeot 408s.
Do you think?
I would guess, yeah.
Well,
But
but if you
anyway,
want to know how many cans, or you want to tell us how many cans of Rich Energy have been sold this year, you're more than welcome to. You can write to us. There's an email. It's hello@smithandsniff.com.
Yes, that's true. All right, well, let's bring this into land. Before we go, I've got 3 things to tell you. Firstly, Johnny's engaged in a very bold project to bring back some mediocre restaurants to major cities themed around our favourite female singer under the working title The Sade Rock Cafe. If that's not to your taste, then there is, of course, The Late Break Show. Lots of excellent videos about cars on there.
You slit.
Have we?
Honestly.
What have we got coming up?
You DSG trombone. I can remember what we're doing. There's an update on the Austin Allegro will have gone out, my Allegro Type R. So this is part 12 of the video series. Things are getting serious, kids. Things are getting serious. We are at a point where we think we're on schedule to fire the car up for the first time before the end of 2024. So there's that, and there's a barn find, and it's I'm not going to give it away, but it's a 90s really iconic barn find in the best colour they ever sold these cars in, and it's an estate with power.
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Well,
I can hear you're genuinely interested. I like that, Richard.
Well, of course I am. You know me. I love all of these things. Second
the
thing,
Sade Rock Cafe. I actually quite like the idea of that. I caught myself watching a Sade music video the other night when I might have had some wine, and it was a great video.
I was crossing London on public transport listening to Sade last week, and it just made everything so much nicer. I felt quite sophisticated.
I bet it did. She's so cool. I really hope that she gets in touch with our show at some point so we can talk about rotaries and stuff. It's just not going to happen, but I just hope that it might.
Well, it's good to have dreams.
Yeah.
All right. Second thing I've got to tell you is that, as we've mentioned, we have new merchandise out.
What? Do we?
2.2, T-shirts and caps, CMTMB. Spec D T-shirt is a particularly excellent design, I think. We didn't do it. Someone who knows what they're doing did it. Go to smithandsniff.com and have a look at what's on sale there, and there will be other things joining the range quite soon. And the third
You sounded
thing,
very local DJ just then.
that was a bit. Mate, this is the second time in this podcast. This is the third thing I've got to tell you is that Take That's original name was The Cutest Rush.
Was it?
Well, it was.
God.
It was just Gary and Mark, and they were called The Cutest Rush, and then they rebranded as Kick It, and then finally Take That and Party.
Of course.
And then they realised that was a bit unwieldy, and they just became Take That.
Well, do you remember that Take That song, Sure, Sure, So Sure? That one.
Yeah.
It wasn't a very good one. If you just want to lighten the mood one day, just whenever they say sure, just say shit when you're singing it back. It's just better.
Oh.
It's fun.
See, I honestly, the first time I heard that song on the radio, I thought it was called Shot.
Shot, so shot.
Yeah, and I was a bit like, well, that's a bit dark, isn't it? Who's been shot?
I reckon Howard. I reckon...
That was the original title, yes. That's Howard's Been Shot by Take That and Party.
Do you know what it'll be? They were partying, genuinely. But what happened was, sometimes house parties can have a dark turn. Something happens.
Yeah, oh God.
Someone's found dad or grandpa's shotgun, thinking it's a fake.
Yeah.
They've let it off in the front room. It's not fake.
Yeah.
And
no, poor old Howard. He's like the sort of Kenny of Take That. It's just every single release. He gets shot or run over or
shot.
Falls into an industrial mincing machine.
Gary gets lyrically influenced after seeing Howard, who's intoxicated. After seeing Howard bent over a sofa and the other lads, Jason, is tweezering shot out of his butt cheeks.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
It Only Takes a Minute was actually inspired by seeing how quickly Howard drowned after falling into a pool in a sleeping bag. Awful way to go.
What are we...
Just zipped it up too tight.
What are we talking about?
I don't know. It's probably time to end.
Gosh.
We'll be back on Friday with another Otter Sot answering your questions and another regular show on Monday. But until then, thank you ever so much for listening. Goodbye.
Bye, guys. CMTMB.
So you've enjoyed this podcast, but you've had a thought. Is there a way here today that you could show support? Well, you could join our Patreon, what wonders that it brings. Early shows and extra notes on that side of things. You could buy our merchandise, we've mugs and hats but still no ties. One day we will make those pies, but in the meantime, guys, hey guys, like and subscribe and maybe leave a nice review. Like and subscribe, we know you know just what to do. Like and subscribe, we don't want to take the piss. Like and subscribe, but we were told to ask for this. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Shot, so shot.
Shot, so
Just
shot.
singing it really polite, almost like Warren G. With 9 in the clip and a pepper them down, 8 dogs gonna make somebody's turn cold.
Why? That sounds like Noel Coward does Regulate. There were 9 in the clip and another one. Next stop is the East Side Motel.